All right, number nine. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Knock Middle School Auditorium. My name is Richard Lodge. I'm the editor of the Daily News, which is the sponsor of tonight's mayoral forum. I'm glad to have you all here, and I have to say it's great seeing some social distancing out there, but mostly seeing your faces here out in the public at a good public event. I think we need a sound check here. All right. I can be loud, but is that better? I'm not going to start all over, but I am going to try to whip through this because we only have 90 minutes tonight, and we have a lot of questions that were submitted by readers. We culled through those, sorted them out, picked a whole bunch of topics, and we'll try to ask those tonight. There are 3 candidates for mayor with us tonight. Alphabetically, to my immediate left is Sean Reardon, then Warren Russo, and Charlie Tontar. Each candidate will get 2 minutes for an opening remark and 2 minutes for closings. A few minutes ago, we drew from a coconut and picked numbers, so it's decided who goes first, and they flipped that order for the closing remarks. So after their opening remarks, the moderator will ask a series of questions. Each man will have 2 minutes to answer. I will be the timekeeper, a new role for me, and I'll be sitting down in the front row with a sign that says 30 seconds on it, and the other side of it says time. So that's for the candidates to know that we know they won't run over. We also ask everybody to silence your mobile devices, as they say at the screening room, and to hold your applause until after the candidates have given their closing remarks, if you don't mind. We also ask that anyone who is not vaccinated for any reason wear a mask while they're in the building, and we encourage everyone to do that as a precaution. Our moderator tonight is Amber Hewitt. Amber is a lifelong Newburyport resident and a graduate of Newburyport Public Schools and UMass Amherst. She has spent the last 8 years working on state and federal climate and clean energy policy for the National Wildlife Federation. Last year, she was the Democratic nominee for state representative for Amesbury, Newburyport, and Salisbury. I'm very happy to turn these microphones over to Amber Hewitt, our moderator tonight.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Richard, and thank you to the Newburyport Daily News for the opportunity to moderate this community conversation this evening. The questions that I will be asking tonight came from you, so thank you to everyone who took the time to submit one. I simply have the privilege this evening of delivering those questions to our 3 candidates and holding them accountable to answering them. So to our candidates, to Sean, Warren, and Charlie, thank you all for stepping up, for wanting to serve your community as mayor, and for being here this evening to make your case. With that, we will dive right in with opening statements in the order drawn from the coconut. We will start with Warren. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you to the Daily News and Mr. Lodge for sponsoring this meeting for the candidates for mayor of Newburyport. Can you restart the clock now? Can you hear me? I'd like to thank the Daily News and Mr. Lodge for sponsoring this meeting of the candidates for mayor, as well as Amber Hewitt for moderating. If you are here, it is obvious that you care about Newburyport and its future. We have 3 good candidates running for this office, and I am here, as they are, to let you know that my vision for this great city, and if elected, what I can do for Newburyport and for you, the citizens. I want to commend Mayor Holliday for the Senior Center, the rail trails, and her other projects. This could only have happened by working with the City Council, and that is what I hope to do. We may not always agree, but by working together, we can accomplish so much. It sometimes means making tough decisions and hard work, but together we can do it. I see 8 great issues facing Newburyport today. Number 1 is education. Our students represent the future. We must always fund our schools efficiently and effectively so that our students remain competitive and our graduates successful. As the holder of 3 degrees myself, I am a great believer in education. Number 2 is a hotel. Newburyport is the only city in the country this size that does not have a hotel. Both Port Plaza and the Old East site are ideal locations for a hotel for visitors and business travelers. And I hope to get one built. In fact, I've already been in communication with several major hotel chains on that subject. Number 3 is the waterfront. Rejecting decades of developer proposals have left us with rutted dirt parking lots that are a stain on our could-be beautiful waterfront. A hybrid development, one that leaves the central waterfront open, would have generated many millions in property taxes by now, significantly reducing the average resident's tax burden. Number 4 is the garage. Newburyport is a traveling community and deserves bus service to Boston and to Logan Airport, but C&J has left the city, and our new garage does not offer these connections. Number 5 is street paving. We can eliminate half-paved streets by coordinating paving with neighboring communities. Our streets should be paved with asphalt, not potholes.
And that is time. Thank you. We will move forward to Charlie.
I too would like to thank the Daily News for sponsoring this forum, Amber Hewitt for agreeing to moderate, Port Media for broadcasting it and streaming it. But above all, I'd like to thank all of you for being here tonight and everyone who is listening to it on Port Media. This is my 8th year serving on the City Council. I could pretty easily account for what I've done there, but I'd just like to take a moment to introduce myself to you and also tell you why I have decided to seek public office. When my mom died, we found over 300 letters that my dad had sent home from the Pacific. One of them really stood out. It was after a particularly tough time. My mother was saying that he should be rotated back. He'd been there over 2 years. He should come back. And my father wrote her, and this is what he said. He said, "As long as I can save one mother's son," that's the word he used, that's what he said, "one mother's son, all right, I'm staying here. It's worth the sacrifice. It's worth the risk." Both of my parents, all right, left me a legacy of service to the community. It's that legacy of service that leads me to want to leave the world just a little bit better place than when I came in. That's why I decided to study economics. Economics is the study of how to improve people's lives, how to make the world a better place. That's why I served on my son's school as the chair of the fundraising committee, where we built a school from scratch. That's why I wrote and worked on grants with the City of Lawrence on strategic planning, open space, affordable housing, and parks. That's why I ran for City Council, and that's why I am now running for mayor. I have the experience, I have the background, I have the knowledge to keep moving Newburyport forward. My motivation is really pretty simple, all right? I want to leave Newburyport a little bit better place than when I came here. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. And on to you, Sean. You have 2 minutes.
I, would like to thank the Daily News tonight and Port Media for putting this mayoral forum tonight together. Volume? I also want to thank the crowd who decided to come out tonight. The Olympics is clearly over. I want to especially thank my friends and family who came out to support me tonight after a very emotional day. I also want to thank my opponents for entering the race. Is my...
Yeah, there you go.
Do you want to try again? All right, I'm going to start from the beginning. Is that okay?
Can we turn it up? There you go. Let's get real.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. I want to thank the Daily News and Port Media for putting together this mayoral forum tonight. Thank you for the crowd who decided to come out tonight. Clearly, Olympics has ended. I especially want to thank my friends and family who came out tonight after a very emotional day for all of us. I also want to thank my opponents for entering the race. Running for office is not an easy decision. The fact that you both want to take this on is very admirable. I've been preparing to be mayor of Newburyport my whole life. I'm a fifth-generation Newburyporter who has always wanted to serve my hometown. I've lived in every ward in the city. I've worked for our schools, our harbor master, and our Department of Public Services. After graduating from Ohio State, I came home to Newburyport. I met my beautiful wife, Jessie, who was also a Newburyporter, at Michael's Harborside, where we both worked one summer, and the rest is history. We currently live on Lois Street with my children, Sadie, Ruby, and Oliver. After a few years of working for the Newburyport and Triton school districts, I moved into educational sales, where I've held a variety of positions over the past 16 years. Developing partnerships, building budgets, negotiating contracts, and building relationships with municipalities all over the Commonwealth. When I take office in January, I will have my master's in public administration. I've also worked within the city on a variety of different levels. I was appointed to the Parks Commission in 2009, one of our many volunteer boards here in Newburyport. I was involved in the Port Pride campaign and co-chair of the Restore Our Port Pride campaign that gave us our senior community center, the new Bresnahan Elementary, and the new Sailing Field at Newburyport High School. The past 4 years, I've served on the school committee, where I've been chair of the curriculum subcommittee and also co-chair of the joint ed committee. We've hired a new superintendent. We've maintained in-person learning during a pandemic, and we've implemented later start times. After 12 years under one administration, it's time for a fresh perspective. New ideas, new energy, and a new way of doing things. I look forward to talking to you more tonight about my vision for Newburyport. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you all. As we move to our questions, we will start in alphabetical order by last name. So I'll start with you, Sean, and then we'll go to Warren and to Charlie. With each following question, we'll shift one forward in that order. So the second question will start with you, Warren, and the third question will start with Charlie. So 2 minutes to answer the following question, Sean. Looking out at a sea of masked and distant faces, we are still living with the challenge of COVID-19. How can the city be proactive in the face of variants that affect us now and in the future? What safety guidelines or mandates would you seek to implement as mayor? And finally, should there be mandatory vaccines for city employees, school administrators, teachers, and staff?
Thank you for the question. I think going through what we went through this past year, I think a lot of those steps and systems have been put into place, which I think is really important. I know particularly on the schools, this is a huge question. We're about to go back to school. Unfortunately, last year, the information that we had from the state trickled and trickled and trickled and trickled out. And it was very indecisive and it was difficult. And it seems like today, right before I walked in here tonight, I got an alert that there was a tweet from the CDC and the DESE, Department of Education, that said that they pretty much were going to be putting it on the school committees again and not make a decision statewide. They were going to leave it up to school committees to decide whether masks were going to be required for all districts across the state. So it's going to come down to us. And I think we have put some of those systems in place. Again, this is, before it was such a revelation when COVID hit. We weren't prepared. I think I could really credit Mayor Holliday for getting the teams together to work through, and I credit the schools. We actually were able to keep in-person learning all year. We're really one of the few districts in the state that were able to do that because we prioritized in-person learning, but at the same time, we wanted to keep our staff and our students safe. So going forward with this resurgence in this Delta variant, I think we have to be incredibly proactive. I would love to see us require our public employees to be vaccinated. Again, it's a part of employment. I think if we can keep people safe, we have the vaccine out there, and we want to trust the science, and I think it works. I think thinking of our schools, again, we have to keep our students and staff safe while prioritizing in-person learning. So I totally expect masks to be in place at the start of the school year. We haven't had that discussion yet. We have a retreat actually later this week that will talk about some of these health safety regulations. And I'm looking forward to Superintendent Gallagher putting that medical advisory team back together. I hope going forward, and some of the lessons we learned from last year, is I want to see that as a much more public process. I think the public has a right to see how those meetings are being taken place and what kind of information is being gathered and what's being shared. Again, we work in a public organization, and that we need to have transparency. We have to have a set process in place. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Warren, same question to you.
Well, this is a very controversial issue. Many people have different opinions on it, their personal feelings, and depending upon the ages of their family members.
Here, I think just a little closer to the mic.
Many people have different opinions on this controversial topic. And we cannot kind of broad brush this issue because it can be an individual decision. Certainly our children, the school children, have not benefited from the lockdown. They need to be, the socialization aspect of elementary school is very important for the rest of their lives. And homeschooling simply does not compare. So generally, I think anything that we must do to get the little children back to school, to get all the children back to school, we just have to do it, and there's no question about it. But as far as adults go, we are still a freedom country, and people want to have the ability to make their own decision about what to do with their bodies. So obviously we have to obey the laws, and there are rules restricting access to public facilities, and we must obey them. But again, it can be a problematic decision for many people, depending upon the nature of their families.
And to be clear, yes or no, do you support mandatory vaccines for city employees?
I support supporting the law. I'm not sure that a mandatory vaccine is justified yet. You know, none of these vaccines are FDA approved. So many people feel it's, they would rather not. Personally, I have been vaccinated twice. And the second shot actually put me in the hospital. So there, people have different responses. You know, I think we're all a little bit different. And I think we must obey the law. That's as far as public access and public places. But as far as what people do in their own homes, that's up to them.
Thank you. And Charlie, same question to you.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I think you owe yourselves a little bit of a word of congratulations. Newburyport is people over the age of 13. 79% are double vaxxed. That's a tribute to the people in this city, but also to the efforts on the part of the state and Mayor Holliday and the firefighters and the volunteers and our public health department that really went all out and made it possible for us to be vaccinated. We were all hoping that we were past this pandemic, and the Delta variant has jumped us. I think if we're paying attention, we're not entirely surprised by it. And of course, the events in Provincetown a couple of weeks ago, where we saw that you could be double vaccinated, you could get COVID even though you were double vaccinated, and you could transmit it to other people, is a wake-up call. I personally feel that this next spike that is certainly coming would require, if I were mayor, to place a mandate on wearing masks indoors, whether you're vaccinated or not, across the city. And that's what I would do. I think for safety's sake, that is a necessary step. Secondly, in terms of guidelines, I think if you're making a mandate to wear masks outdoor, I would urge people outside to socially distance. Thirdly, on the question of mandatory vaccines, yeah, for city employees, I would make it mandatory to have a vaccine unless someone had a medical reason not to do so. You know, I know numbers have gone up. I've been watching them very closely. You know, late last week we had 6 more cases in Newburyport. Doesn't sound like a lot, but I just urge you all to be careful out there.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on now to a couple of questions pertaining to small businesses. For the sake of time, I'll read the questions once, but you're all welcome to ask me to repeat them when your turn comes up. The first question, we'll start with you, Warren. In response to the pandemic, the city helped to finance parklets to enable restaurants to set up open-air dining. Do you support keeping the parklets? If so, for how long? And could they become permanent fixtures?
Yes, I wholeheartedly endorse the parklets. I think sidewalk dining is a wonderful thing, having experienced it all over Europe. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I wholeheartedly support it. As long as the weather holds out, I think it's a wonderful thing for everyone.
All right, thank you. Charlie, on to you.
Yeah, I too support the parklets, and I want to congratulate Councilor McCauley and Councilor Lane and Councilor Devlin for taking the initiative on keeping, helping downtown restaurants. I want to congratulate Mayor Holliday and the administration for going out and getting the grants. Those were built with grant money from the state, and they've been a tremendous success. I too like the idea of outside dining, both for public health reasons right now, but also just in general. There's no downside to eating outside. It's a little tough on wait staff, I understand that, but it's a great boon to the city. So yeah, parklets are the winner. I would keep them. They not in the winter, but the rest of the time, I would definitely keep them. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Sean?
So I'm going to sound like a broken record, but absolutely in favor of the parklets to continue. Coming out of COVID, first of all, I think our small and large businesses here in Newburyport are the lifeblood of the community. And I think there's so much more, not only in tough times, but even, in normal times, that we should be supporting our businesses here in Newburyport. Absolutely in favor. In fact, how great was this summer to go back to all those places, the places we shop, the places we dine, see the people we hadn't seen in sometimes a year or months at a time. This summer was really great, and it's unfortunate we're falling back with this Delta variant. I think we should make it permanent. That dining ordinance is about to expire. Let's make it permanent. Let's expand it. I mean, I like what Mr. Russo said. It can have a very European feel around Newburyport, utilizing space for outdoor dining. I was talking to the Park Lunch owner today about the outside dining they've been able to do. And I mean, they were able to add 45 seats to their restaurant. And again, for these close confined restaurants, that can be a real boon for them. And I think we should really encourage it going forward. I think we can do a lot more too. I don't think it just starts at parklets. I'd love to see us develop a community website that businesses, small businesses, maybe those who don't have the bandwidth to do their own website, a community-run one that they can sell their wares there, that everyone can use. And I've seen that done in a few different communities. I'd like to see that happen. And another thing I would love to try is right now we don't have an economic development director here in Newburyport. No one's the point person in City Hall for that. I think that point person can work collaboratively with the Chamber of Commerce. I think it can work with our businesses in town. I think it can work with the industrial and business park to really recruit, get other businesses to come to Newburyport. There's so much we can do. I just think that's just a couple ideas. But our local economy, it's crucial for jobs. We look at our restaurants still are having trouble getting fully staffed. We have to do all we can to support the businesses here in Newburyport. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for gaining a little time there and the parklet stay. So that's wonderful. I will be shifting now to Charlie for the first question here, and to zoom out from parklets and from restaurants, but to small businesses generally. What are your ideas to support local businesses and to encourage small businesses to establish themselves in Newburyport?
Sure. I think, first of all, our downtown business area is critical to the nature and character of the city and to the city's success. And so we have to understand why people want to come to Newburyport. And if we understand why people come to Newburyport, then we know how to keep them coming here, and that's what's going to help our local businesses. So people come here, first of all, because of the spectacular variety of dining. They come here for the drinking establishments. They come here to go to the waterfront, and as mayor, I promise that I will complete that central waterfront park, and that's a key draw. We now have parking. We can take the parking spaces away, and that's an important factor. But downtown is not the only economic driver in our area. We also have the business park. I think that we could do more to work with the owners in the business park than we have been doing to see what they need. They face some tough competition. I worked on the master plan, the economic development chapter, and what we saw that local businesses said is that one of their challenges is that there was a lack of affordable housing in the city. And many people were surprised by that, but they said without affordable housing, they were having trouble finding people to work here, all right? And so interesting enough, affordable housing is a necessary condition for economic success in Newburyport. I also agree that we should strongly consider having an economic development specialist that can help out both with the business park and also help promote people coming here to Newburyport. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Sean, you have 2 minutes.
So I gave you a little preview of my answer to the last question. But I think it's really important. I think coming out of COVID, we have to support our small businesses as best we can. I think the parklets is a good example. I think the community website is a great idea for small businesses to be able to compete with the Amazons of the world. And we're always encouraging people to shop locally. This would give them another avenue to do that with a community-run website for our businesses here in Newburyport. We can do a lot more with the business park. I've been knocking on doors and taking meetings with Newburyporters for most of this year, and I've got to sit down with some of the owners and CEOs in the business park, and they're desperate for some more support and to be brought to the table and share some ideas of how they can make the business and industrial park even better. And I do think hiring that economic development director is a step in the right direction. One, it shows us that we're open for business, and we want to bring successful businesses here to Newburyport. We want to support our businesses and help them succeed, because as they succeed, we succeed, and we bring more people to Newburyport. Just like we all would love to see a hotel somewhere in Newburyport. Again, I think we need to bring New England development back to the table and bring a hotel to Waterfront West, if that's still possible. One, it solves a need for Newburyport. I think if you have a convention center as well with it, talk about year-long patrons you're going to be bringing to Newburyport. That's actually going to we're going to have a conference center between Gloucester and Portsmouth and Boston. We have another event center here. People are going to come in year-round, and then they're going to flood our downtown businesses and restaurants with business. So I think that would be I think those are just a couple things that we can do to increase the economic development here in Newburyport.
Excellent. Thanks, Sean. And Warren.
Yes, I spent a large part of my life as a marketing consultant for businesses, large and small. And what we need to do is be a little more creative. We have some fine restaurants. If we can get them to work together, perhaps have a dining card that's usable at any restaurant in town, perhaps have more street fairs featuring the foods of local restaurants. There are many tourists come to Newburyport, and they come for the day because there's no place to stay. So part of this is building a hotel somewhere in town. We have the famous Port Plaza Kmart site has been empty for about 5 years, and nobody has done a thing with it. It's a perfect spot for a hotel. It's close to the highways. We get a lot of boat traffic lately. Many fine boats have been tying up at the pier this year. So the market is there. We just have to take a better advantage of it. People come for the day. We have to encourage them to stay. And the way to do that is to build a hotel, build more residences, and finally finish the waterfront development. By flanking that central waterfront with condominiums on one side and shops on the other, we can leave the central waterfront open, because I know many Newburyporters, including myself, want to see the central waterfront remain wide open because we love it down there. We just want to see those parking lots better utilized. We want to see them paved with paving stones, not asphalt. And we want to see better utilization of the vast beauty of Newburyport and polish this jewel.
Thank you. Staying on a similar theme, and you covered a bit of this in your answers, so no need to fill the 2 minutes if you feel that you've already answered. But quickly, and starting with Sean, as the largest and most powerful property owner in the city, New England Development, or NED, controls the waterfront and the harbor view. There's speculation that NED is selling a significant number of its properties on Waterfront West to another company, Avalon Bay. How will you protect the city from overdevelopment?
Thank you. Yeah, this is a hot topic right now here in Newburyport. I think that parcel of land, Waterfront West, between Michael's Harborside and Tuscan Kitchen, is crucial to downtown, and it's critical to get it right. 3 years ago, we had New England Development at the table, and negotiations broke down, and they walked away. And I think it was a very missed opportunity by the administration and the city council. That Waterfront West overlay district is not bulletproof, and it was vulnerable to a proposal like this, the 40B. So I think we missed an opportunity there. I also think we really had no cohesive plan at the time for the city council and the administration to work together to negotiate with New England Development. So I think that needs to change. So first, I won't go too into this, but I would like to see a hotel conference center go in that space as part of what would be a win for Newburyport to go there. Number two, we haven't seen the 40B plan yet, so it's just being proposed right now. There's no plan out there. But what's difficult with the 40B is that it takes that zoning control away from Newburyport. And again, that's concerning because we like to have control of that process. This should be a process that they have to go through with developers. The one thing that 40B would bring to Newburyport is more affordable housing units, which I do think is important. I just don't think that's the right sensible development for that area. There has to be a mix there. And three, we need to defend ourselves against a 40B in that area as well. We have to be prepared to litigate against it. It's an uphill battle, but I think it's a battle that Newburyport has to fight. As mayor, my number one priority is going to try to bring all sides back to the table. I want to bring New England Development back to the table. I want to have a cohesive plan to work with our city council and hopefully negotiate a solution that can be a win-win for both. New England Development owns that property, and partnering with a company like Avalon West, again, it's concerning because I don't think that's a win for Newburyport. I think we bring them back to the table and we work out a solution that can work for that area. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. On to you, Warren.
We've been bringing developers back to the table now for about 20 years. And every time all our local experts look at it and say, oh, well, it's too tall, or it's not tall enough, or the sight lines are no good, or we don't like the texture of the bricks you used, and it's always something, but the criticism is never constructive. So New England Development goes away, and they come back a year or so later with another plan. And again, we don't like the angle of the buildings, or it's always over the windows. It's always something. That's management by committee. That's what happens. The way to do it is to sit down with these developers and tell them what you want. Tell them you want an open waterfront. You want the residences on one side of the central waterfront, and you want the shops on the other. You want them angled toward the central waterfront park so that everyone has a nice view, but the view for the residents is maintained. That's what you do. You give people specific direction, and they will come back with a plan that suits our requirements. We can't keep playing this guessing game year after year after year. That's how we've ended up with these dirt parking lots. And if you vote for me, I'll make sure that it happens, and it will happen, and it will get done right, and it will get done before the end of my term, because I'm only serving one term.
Thanks, Warren. On to you, Charlie.
Yeah, actually, there was remarkable unanimity among the city council and the mayor in our negotiations with New England Development in their last proposal. From the beginning, we told New England Development that there were too many units that they were proposing, 230, right? That they were too high and that they were too dense. And that kind of development was out of character with what Newburyport is, right? And I think there were 10 city councilors voted to discontinue it. The administration agreed. And I just want to know, yeah, we were arguing, we'd love to have a hotel, but New England Development had a staged process where they were going to build the hotel as the last stage. They indicated to us that they did not think that a hotel could make a profit here in Newburyport. That was not our position. So at that point, New England Development decided to walk from the process and to reconsider. Of course, they've come back now with the design. It is equally dense. It is as high as it was before. It is it's just too many units, all right? We all welcome more affordable housing. If New England Development thinks this is a threat, I think they're wrong, all right? Build affordable housing there, that's great. However, I really do think that we can defend ourselves against it. I supported the smart growth development around the train station, the so-called 40R growth. Those units count toward affordable housing, and I think we're going to win before the Department of Housing and Community Development, and I don't think they're going to be able to get around 40B, and I won't let them.
Thank you all. This next question, we've heard answers from Sean and from Warren, so I'm going to go straight to Charlie, but if either of you would like to add, just give me a signal. Does the city need a hotel? If so, where should it be? To you, Charlie.
Absolutely. I'd love to have a hotel, and I'd love to have a hotel on the Waterfront West. Absolutely. I'd settle for Waterfront East. The only place I do not want a hotel is in the central Waterfront Market Landing, and there won't be one there. You know, if Mr. Kaplan is interested in putting a hotel on his property that he owns, the city would, you know, on Story Ave, the city certainly would work with him to do that.
Thank you. Sean, Warren, anything to add?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that apparently this process is, they're planning to continue this process. The city council is, this is tantamount to going to a restaurant and saying, bring me something nice. And when the waiter brings it out to you, you say, no, I don't think so, bring me something else. And it just goes on and on and on. You have to make a specific set of conditions, requirements, and advice, and give that. If you don't give the order, say what you want, say what you're ordering, you will never get what you want. And this will just continue on and on. It's already been at least 20 years. And at this rate, it'll be another 20 years before we get a complete waterfront development.
Thanks, Warren.
Can we get a bowling alley at Port Plaza? Is that possible? I think that'd be,
You might have
we keep going to
something-
Amesbury to bowl. Let's get a bowling alley
So
here.
you thought you might have something fun to add there. All right, so next question, we'll start with you, Warren. The median home price in Newburyport, it's about $1 million. What would you do to increase the number of affordable housing units in the city so that people can both afford to move here and to stay here?
Well, I guess part of this problem has already been solved. The latest proposal for the waterfront development includes 40B housing. So there's 110 units right there. The other thing you can do is increase the commercial tax base to relieve the property tax burden on the taxpayers, lower the tax rate so that we are not a community that's only for the wealthy. For the past, if they had built the waterfront development 10 or 20 years ago, can you imagine all the income from those properties would have significantly lowered the tax rate and made the city more affordable? The other thing you can do is attract more industry we have a big industrial park that still has a lot of empty spaces. We have a downtown that's only half developed. That needs to be completed. The other cities along the East Coast and elsewhere have done this repeatedly. They've built up they built around their primary attraction. People like to look at the water, so they build condominiums and they put shops near the water where people can stroll around, have something to eat, buy a few things, and live right there. Right now, Newburyport has nothing. We don't even have a place for visitors to stay. Tourists come here from all over the East Coast. They come for the day and then they go home again. So maybe they have one meal, maybe they buy one trinket on State Street or whatever, and that's it. So they're not contributing to our economy.
Thank you. Charlie.
Yeah, affordable housing, which I mentioned before, is difficult in Newburyport. I worked on an affordable housing project in Lawrence. We were able to purchase a property, say a 3-decker, renovate it to HUD standards, which is a high standard, get an owner-occupier to buy it, and then get a couple people as renters to support that. And we were successful. I mean, the problem is in Lawrence, we could buy a triple-decker for $75,000 and put a lot of money into it. Its value would be about $200,000 at the end, and it was affordable. In Newburyport, now, I don't think our median house home is $1 million. The last I saw it was about $630,000, but it could be moving. We have data will be updated. It's tough. It's tough to buy vacant lots. It's tough to develop, but we are doing things, and we can do more. Again, I mentioned the 40R project. That resulted in 25% affordable units, a great success at One Boston Way. 3 Boston Way is being constructed now. That will result in another 20 affordable units. There's a third phase that will need permitting, which could result in another 20 units. Hillside, David Hall's project, is going to result in 10 affordable units. We have the Brown School that we're doing a hazmat study of it now, both in terms of keeping youth services there potentially as a possibility, but also for affordable housing. That it remains to be seen. The suspicion is there's asbestos in there. And then finally, in zoning, and the council now is taking a hard look and going over zoning, we can introduce more accessory housing throughout the city, and that will help us develop more affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sean?
Yeah, this is a real important issue, and I think it's an issue not just in Newburyport, it's an issue all over the state. And I think about the different populations of people here in Newburyport that is affected by affordable housing. I'm thinking about my seniors, I'm thinking about our working class people here in Newburyport. My parents about 6 years ago had to sell their home, and they just didn't have any options here in Newburyport, so they ended up moving up to Maine for 6 years. And right before COVID, they kind of fell into a place and were lucky to come back to Newburyport. But I think a lot of seniors just aren't that lucky, and they're slowly getting forced out. So we've got to do something to help our seniors. My wife and I bought our first house in 2007, in the corner of Cutting and High. And I think at the time it was the only house in Newburyport under $350,000. And we struggled with a new family to stay in Newburyport for that 9 years. I was working 3 jobs at one time because it was that important to us to stay in Newburyport. So it's difficult, and so we do have to find ways to help. The 40R smart growth was mentioned. I think we need to expand that. I think that Boston Crossing location has been, I think it's been a big hit. I think it's filled a need. I think, what we heard, there's a few more phases coming, but I think we need to be flexible and expand that to different parts of the city, so that is an option. We need to keep taxes reasonable, especially for our seniors, where the taxes keep going up and up with, houses being torn down and bigger ones being built up. I think we're not utilizing all the programs that we have for seniors regarding taxes in the state, and I know we can take a hard look at that and do a lot better. And finally, the Brown School absolutely needs to be senior housing here in Newburyport. We're going to find a new home for the Newburyport Youth Services. I would love to keep the Brown School under city control, and I think the way is to sign that over to the Housing Authority and get that process started. If it doesn't happen before I'm elected to office, it's going to happen right after I get elected. Because I think it's an absolute need here in the city, and I think it'd be a perfect fit. And again, that's going to have to be a public process, and we're going to have to work with the neighbors, but I believe it's something we can do. And finally, we have to work with all the department heads in town. We have to work with the boards in town to make affordable housing a priority citywide. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so our next question, you've teed it up a bit there with the reference to the Brown School. I want to dig in, or at least check to see if anyone has anything to add on that topic. So we'll start with you, Charlie. The Brown School, of course, has been a hot topic for about 7 years now. And what do you think should happen to the building? Should it be razed? Can it be saved? If it can't be saved, what replaces it?
Sure. Well, first of all, as I mentioned before, we really do have to get the Credera report on the hazardous materials that may or may not be in there. That's going to determine how much it will cost to renovate that structure. If there's asbestos in there, it has to be removed. We have to make it safe either for youth services or anyone who lives there. So that's a precondition. I think we're going to get the results of that within the next few months. And that will give us an idea of what the expense will be on that building. Personally, I would like to see that structure used for affordable housing. There's been a lot of talk about having senior affordable housing there that would meet the needs in the neighborhood. As mentioned earlier, seniors in the city are stressed in terms of their capacity to stay here by rising taxes. I've tried a couple times to undertake some steps to reduce the tax burden on the seniors in the city. I lost one, so I just sponsored and we passed an extension of the work-off program, we'll give them more money. But the Brown School, I think, I'd like to see senior housing there. Whether or not it is possible to also have youth services there is going to come down to a function of finances. I know one proposal was to have youth services occupy the first floor of the Brown School and then also the gym and the other buildings there. I think that's tough. I think that's tough for any affordable housing developer to do that without the entire old Brown School itself being affordable housing. So, you know, I think that we need to find out the finances for that one.
Thank you. We will follow up with some more questions on youth services preview. All right, over to you, Sean, on Brown School.
All right, so I won't say any of my
Yes.
youth services stuff. I'm just going to do that right now. Yeah, no, I completely, you know, again, I've already stated this, but I absolutely think Brown School should be turned into senior affordable housing and turned over to the Housing Authority. Of course, we're going to go through a process, make sure it's safe, and then find, you know, work out the finances and come up with a plan. Again, getting buy-in from the residents around the Brown School as well. I mean, there has to be a public process in everything we do, but particularly with the Brown School. I'm going to save my youth services thing, but you know, one of the things I'll mention it again later. You know, I went looking for our facilities master plan on our city website, and it turns out we don't have one. So I think a lot of these things that we're working on in town, I mean, that's going to be one of the first things I do as mayor is get that facilities master plan in place, because that should be the thing that's driving a lot of the way we use our facilities in town. I mean, we think about youth services, we think about the Brown School, we think about our DPS. There has to be a master plan in place for our facilities, and that's going to tell us what we need now, what we have now, and then what our future needs possibly could be. And I think this could span a lot of different departments. So again, I think we're missing that right now, and I think that's really going to be something that's going to drive some of these decisions going forward, because we just don't have it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Warren.
Well, it seems to me that we've been flying by the seat of our pants for generations now, and things just do not happen quickly enough or inexpensively enough. And I think if I were running a major renovation project that may involve hazardous materials like the Brown School, I think there are probably more efficient, less expensive ways to accomplish the renovation and reuse of that facility than letting a municipality do it. I would think a more effective way would be to sell the property, let a developer do whatever with it to either raise it or renovate it, and then remarket it. Maybe we could buy it back or use adaptive reuse for senior housing and whatever. But for the city to, again, wait for it to be entered on a master plan and then go through another 1,000 committee meetings to talk about it for a few more years, and it will just sit there, and the longer you let a building sit, the more expensive the renovation becomes. So I'm in favor of unloading it from the city. We simply cannot afford it. For too long now, we've simply upped the tax rate every year because one department or another needs more income, needs more funding, so we raise the tax rate. That is not an effective, efficient way to run a city when you're trying to attract people who can afford to live here.
Thank you. All right, our next question is one I think we can all agree needs an answer fairly quickly. Newburyport Youth Services is still looking for a permanent base. Where do you think the program should be, and how can it be financed? Sean.
So I mean, youth services is near and dear to my heart. You know, my dad grew up in the precursor to the youth services, the playgrounds program here on summers when he wasn't teaching. He was working in the playgrounds and working with kids, because that's what he did. He was always working with kids. And I got to tag along with him. And they need a permanent home. I think our youth service has been built up over the years into an incredible department here in the city. I think it's incredibly well run. I think the programs keep expanding year after year, which is great. And I can tell you from my 3 kids, all 3 of them take youth services activities on a regular basis. I know Ruby and Ollie had a Clipper Kids week this summer, and every summer it's their favorite week. So again, you know, it's been nice to see those programs get built up year after year. I've already mentioned the facilities master plan. Again, I think we need it. I think it's going to drive some of the things into some of the decisions we make about our facilities here in town. There absolutely needs to be a public process and a transparent process to find the next site location. I don't know where it should be. I have a couple ideas, but I think that needs to be a public process. I think the process we just tried to go through with Low Street was a one-person process, and we saw how that didn't work out. Whether you wanted it there or not, I think it would have been a perfect location for it, right across the street from the middle school. But regardless, the process wasn't in place, and so it didn't get through. We need to have resident buy-in. Wherever it ends up, it's going to end up near something. So I think we have to have resident buy-in. We have to have a better process for the site selection. It needs to be open, transparent, and we need to find the right investment for Newburyport. And I think that's so important. And the second most important thing for that, it needs to be equitable to all Newburyport families. And I think if we can do that, then we're going to have a great Newburyport Youth Services new building. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. All right, over to you, Warren.
When I was growing up, youth services was usually conducted in one of the local schools because all the schools had cafeterias where they could serve snacks, and they had gymnasiums where the children could play games, and they had tables where the children could meet with teachers, guidance counselors, and whatever. So the question is, does Newburyport need another building completely funded by the taxpayers that produces no income whatever? I think we have enough gymnasiums and cafeterias and auditoriums like this one to take care of the youth services. Personally, I don't see the need for another building that we can't afford.
Okay, so you do not believe that Newburyport Youth Services should have a permanent base?
I believe it can have a permanent base, but that permanent base can be right here in the Knock Middle School.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Charlie.
Sure. There currently is a committee that is examining possible locations for youth services. It's tough, all right? Newburyport is not producing any more land. That's something I said when I advocated for purchasing 57.5 Low Street, and that was a good deal for $220,000. But again, we're examining every possible location for that, and I look forward to their recommendations. Youth Services is a spectacular city department. I want to cite a couple things. I've gone to a number of presentations, in particular the program they have with the Beacon Institute, which is an asset building program for young people in the city. I mean, the idea is if you identify the assets that our children have, they get a lot of self-confidence, and it's a way to prevent them from falling into bad habits. It's a way for them to find themselves, and Youth Service does that spectacularly. Their summer programs are great, subscribed, so we need to do this. The tough nut in finding a location is financing it. And I'm not gonna have enough time to get into the detail on this, but look at, we have a number of capital projects, right? We need to buy to build a new fire station. That's a high priority of mine. Streets and sidewalks need to be paved. That also is a high priority. We need to, I think, build new science labs at the high school. That's a high priority. We need to finish the central waterfront. We're talking about millions of dollars in projects. I think I can fit those four in, all right, under the without raising taxes beyond the levy limit. And I'm out of time.
Thank you.
I could go on.
All right, our next question, we'll start with you, Warren. Zooming out from Youth Services and from the Brown School, what are your ideas for supporting and enhancing the city's public schools?
We know the schools are our future, and nothing is more important than the education of our children. My children are graduates of the Newburyport school system, and they benefited greatly by it. They both did well, and they graduated here. They went on to Fordham University, and now they're pursuing their careers in their chosen fields, which they studied for, and they're doing very well. So, plus the school system in Newburyport occupies about 2/3 of the budget. So it's extremely important, but it's the best investment we have. The idea, however, is to use the city funds efficiently and effectively so that we can maintain that rate of excellence. so that our children remain competitive, and so that when they graduate, they are successful in whatever field they choose to engage in. But that's the top priority with me, and it always has been. And again, I'm very grateful that my own children, my own 2 daughters, did so well here in Newburyport with the school system, that they've been great successes, and I'm very proud of both of them.
Thanks, Warren. Charlie.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I'm an educator. I taught on the college level for 40 years. My wife taught public high school for over 10 years and then obtained a PhD and taught in the graduate program in linguistics at UMass Boston. My son, who is here, the first time I've seen him in 18 months, so if I look really happy, that's why I'm happy. He's a graduate of Newburyport High School as well. He taught high school math for 8 years. My mom was a teacher, so I have teaching just runs through my veins. As far as, I think the question was on improvements that could be undertaken at the high school, the school district is currently the school district is undergoing the construction of a new 5-year strategic plan. I'm extremely impressed with the superintendent, and I do expect the plan. He's not someone who asks for things unless they are really, really needed. And he's an impressive superintendent. I'm glad to get another 3-year contract. We need to keep him. Some of the ideas that I would have is, first of all, I ran an internship program. I'd like to see seniors after they finish the first half year, that January exam. I'd like to see them go out and do internships. I'd like them in the community, either with public agencies, social service agencies, or with private businesses. It's a great opportunity at that time, and it makes a world of difference to have that hand-on experience right before you get out of high school, go to college, or go into the service, or whatever you choose to do. I think it's time that we have free all-day kindergarten. I'd really like to see that in the next strategic plan. I think we have to increase our dual credit programs where students currently can take courses at local colleges, Endicott, Merrimack, and get college credit for while being in high school. I have more.
Thanks, Charlie. All right, over to you, Sean.
Clearly, Charlie saw my sign out front about some of my goals for education. I think our schools are moving in the right direction, which I think is great. I've been honored to serve on the school committee the past 4 years. I was part of the process that hired Superintendent Gallagher, who's just an incredible leader. He's just been a breath of fresh air here in Newburyport, and it's been an honor to work with him. Our schools are moving in the right direction, but we got to keep that bar high. Our goal should be to have the best schools in the state, and we've got to keep working to get there. Most of you know my background. I was a classroom teacher here in Newburyport in the Triton Public Schools. I come from a family of teachers. A couple of them are here tonight. I have kids here in the school districts. They're all going to be at the Mullen Middle School next year, which is going to be great because we instituted later start times, and they're all going to get to walk to school together, which is wonderful for the first time. So I think we're heading in the right direction. And again, education is so important to me. I'm so invested in the quality of education here in Newburyport. Some of the things that I think we can do, again, free full-day kindergarten should be a no-brainer. We're one of the few districts in the state still charging for full-day kindergarten. Talk about a pocket of an initiative that you could do right now that's going to affect the most kids. We actually really don't have a few kids left that go to the half-day kindergarten. But making it free, making it full day, I think it's going to open it up to more people in town. It's going to be much more equitable. We heard a little bit about the 5-year strategic plan. I'm very excited about this process. I'm excited that Superintendent Gallagher is going to be leading this process. I really think this is going to be the roadmap for success for years to come. And what's going to be great about it, it's going to be a public process, but we're going to be able to tell where we are and where we want to go in 5 years. And plus, we're going to see the things along the way that we're going to need to do to get there. It's going to be a really great process to explain the why. Why are we doing things in our schools right now and why they're important? I also want to expand our dual credit. This is a program that just started a few years ago. We can do this even more. It was very well received up the high school. I know we can do more. We do need to do our new science labs. The high school was done over in the late 90s. Things change. They've become obsolete. If we want our kids to be the best, we have to give them the right science labs so they can continue to grow. Funding for schools will absolutely be one of my top priorities. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's go to a topic especially dear to my heart. We're going to talk about the environment. Starting with you, Charlie, Newburyport is a green community. What does this mean, and how will it impact the decisions that you make and the priorities that you set as mayor?
Sure. Being a green community actually gives us access to grants, so at the bottom line, and we've received, since we became a green community, about $1.1 million in grants, which is tremendous. Now, what do those grants do? Those grants help us meet our green community goals. I think we've all, many of us have seen the UN report that came out yesterday. I taught environmental economics at the college level. The substance of that report was not a surprise to me. However, it is still shocking. One of the things we do, and one of the things the grants and one of the things green community status allows us to do, is to reduce our carbon footprint. And when I am mayor, that is going to be of the highest priority to me, that all municipal buildings should become net zero energy. The goal currently in the city and as a green community is to hit that goal of 250. I know that the C40 group of mayors from all over the world have pledged to try to move that up. I know there's some folks in Newburyport that are arguing we should try to hit a net zero energy by 2030. If we can possibly do that, I think we absolutely should do that. One of the things that I did, and we have an energy advisory committee as chair of the Public Utilities Committee, is I was able to get through the council a residential electrical aggregation. That is going to allow us to drop into the spot market immediately and provide residents a potential decrease, total citywide of about $500,000. However, it also allows us, if the city council decides to do it, to increase the number of recyclables, a portion of recyclables that we use, so we can go hit that net zero energy use. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Sean.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think, and I really credit Mayor Holliday for some of the initiatives she started here in your report. And I don't think we were doing any of this before she came on 12 years ago. And we need to keep it going. And I think we have wonderful resources that we can utilize here in your report. You know, I think of guys like Art Currier, who works with our schools quite a bit and with our students, working on ways that we become more green as a school district and partnering with other school districts around the state to do that. We need to continue that. And I think it's something, if we start that education at a level into our schools, drop it all the way down to our elementary schools, they're going to grow up understanding the effects of climate change and what it means to be a green community. And those are all habits that you have to start early. And again, I think that can trickle down to our schools, but it's also what we do here in Newburyport. You know, one of the things I'd love to see is to institute composting citywide, have a citywide initiative. I know we've had some pilots. You know, my family does the Black Earth, and it's been a very positive experience this year. It's taken a little time to get used to it, but it's really been life-changing for us. And I know, you know, a lot of people in town don't want their services cut, but they're willing and able and want to help out our environment. And I think composting is one way we can do that. So I think, and again, as mayor, this needs to be a priority, and this needs to be something that you're driving from the top, and it needs to trickle down to all the departments in town. And I think if we find a way to work together, to work towards some of these green initiative and green goals, I think we can be the leaders in the area, and again, partner with some of our neighboring communities in this effort, and really make a huge difference up here on the North Shore. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Warren.
Yes, this is probably one of the most important issues of the day, is how to help heal the earth and preserve our communities. We've all seen the effects of the western wildfires, those dark clouds of particulate matter flying over the area. I understand the Pacific Gas and Electric is now, for the first time in their history, they're promising to bury something like 100,000 miles of their transmission lines, because many of their transmission lines have started those wildfires, which are highly polluting. I mean, one wildfire probably pollutes the country more than all the other emissions that are extant. Anyway, they're now, what happens is if they don't cut back the foliage far enough and it grows, the power lines hit it and start a fire. So anyway, they're burying those power lines. That's just one benefit. Another one is new energy sources. I understand that Germany is researching the use of hydrogen again, which they once did many years ago with not so good consequences. But today they're refining a process for separating hydrogen from water. You know, H2O is part hydrogen. So that could be a revolutionary change in our energy supply, the use of hydrogen. Another thing you can do is encourage correct packaging. You know, a lot of waste is caused by improper packaging, except we've all gotten those packages that you know, you need a big scissor to open them, or a sharp knife, and there's lots of more packaging than there is material. You get a package from Amazon, sometimes there's more packing material than the item you bought. So that needs to be reduced. And on the local level, simply buying
Thanks,
more.
Warren, we are at time, but we're
Okay.
staying on this topic for a bit. So,
All right.
all of you spoke a bit to the effects and the impacts of the rising challenge of climate change. So I will ask you if you have anything to add to what you think is the most important step Newburyport can take to mitigate the effects of climate change, but I'd love to make sure that everyone specifically addresses how we can mitigate the effects of storm surge. And we are starting this question with Sean.
Sure. Well, again, this is an incredibly important topic. We really need to prioritize dealing with the effects of climate change here in Newburyport. I think we all saw what happened in Texas last year. You know, they had their water supply and their utilities, electricity, affected by a massive storm, and this affected millions of people. And they suffered through it. So we can't let that happen here in Newburyport. I was happy to see the Climate Resiliency Plan get released last year, 2020. This was an incredible plan that took over 5 years to put together. And what I loved about it is it brought all the expertise of the city that we already have here in place together, but it also brought the tremendous amount of expertise that we have in the community together to put forward this plan. So, you know, I think we absolutely have to prioritize protecting our water supply. We have to prioritize protecting our water treatment plant. We can't go back to the future. You know, when we did the water treatment plant a few years ago, we probably should have protected against storm surge, but we can't think backwards. We got to think forwards, and we have to absolutely prioritize protecting our water treatment plant, and then also the National Grid substation on Water Street. And I think that's a critical first step to deal with the effects of storm surge. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Warren.
I keep hearing about protecting this and protecting that against storm surge, but I haven't seen much action lately. I'm not sure what is being done because I don't see any activity. I just hear people talking about doing this, that, or the other thing about storm surge. And I'm not sure that we can do a whole lot about it. You know, the Earth has been changing. The Earth's axis is not steady. The Earth tilts on its axis, and the climate changes. We've all seen the climate change. You know, summer comes later, lasts longer into fall now, and it's just part of this. Part of this problem cannot be solved because these forces are greater than our own. You know, we live on a planet with a molten core. We are moving through space at thousands of miles an hour, and the Earth is spinning on its axis, and the axis not visibly, but it's notably tilted of late, and that's what accounts for the climate change. That's what accounts for most of the climate change. Most climate change is not caused by tailpipe emissions.
And on to you, Charlie.
Yeah, thank you very much. The climate resiliency plan was spectacular, and I urge everyone out there to read it. It's on the city website. So we have already done some things. The first thing, the major thing that we did is that we addressed the vulnerability of the wastewater treatment plant that was right on the waterfront. We got an MVP grant for $1 million. We increased the berm around it. So I go out there almost every day walking with my dog, and that's elevated. That should protect us. There's more to be done. We have to build wings around it so that the water doesn't flow in. But the wastewater treatment plant, we're on top of it, and that's because of the resiliency report. Secondly, we do have to protect our water quality. That probably is the highest need right now. Newburyport doesn't have a backup water supply. Last year when we had that algal bloom, and you can expect more algal blooms with this warmer temperature and the shallowness in the artichoke reservoir. If there were toxins, sufficient toxins, we would have been out of luck. Because we are not interconnected. We need to connect with Amesbury. This past week, our water department had a great meeting with them. I think they can provide it. That's going to cost money. We also have this, basically the dam at the lower artichoke to the Artichoke River has about 3 feet of clearance before either salt water or water with CSOs backs up into the lower artichoke. Because of the link between Indian Hill Reservoir, upper artichoke, and lower artichoke, the intake is right near the bottom. If we get salt water and fecal matter into that, we're going to lose 80% of our water supply. This is of the highest urgency that we address, and I'm once again out of time.
Thanks,
Sorry.
Charlie. Okay, so the Merrimack River will always define this community ecologically and economically. How specifically will you address the combined sewer overflow issues upstream that significantly affect our beaches, our boaters, and our anglers? We'll start this question with you, Warren.
I'm glad you asked me that question because it's been on my mind for some time. The problem with the CSOs, the combined sewer overflows, is that this project is too big for any one community to resolve. Every community along the Merrimack north of us, which is all of them, they're all dumping when they have an overflow from a rainfall. The overflow is polluted and it goes right into the Merrimack River. And of course, we're downstream from everyone, so we get it all. And we've all seen those discs on the beach and in the river from the cleaning plants. But this project, it doesn't matter if we clean up our CSOs because we'll still get them from Haverhill and Lowell. The point is we must appeal. We must get together with the other mayors of the other communities along the Merrimack River and go to Washington and ask for and fairly demand a federal cleanup of the Merrimack River from top to bottom. That is the only way we'll ever get clean water every day from the Merrimack, and it's the only way we can stop CSOs from polluting every city along the river. Thank you. Charlie?
So the first thing that we already have done, we need to keep doing it, is make people aware of it. I kayaked down the Merrimack River from Haverhill as part of that group that kayaked down the Merrimack, along with Senator DeZoglio and Representative Kelcourse and Merrimack River Watershed Council, just to draw attention to it. It's working. It's working. I fully, if you just notice Governor Baker in his proposal as to what to do with American Relief Plan funds, the COVID funds, he suggested that they be used for CSO remediation. The legislature's dealing with that. I fully suspect that we'll get some help there. Also, in the federal infrastructure program, which I guess has come out of the Senate and now is going back to the House, there are funds for addressing it in there. We have to work with other communities. with Congressman Moulton. And one of the things that's really helped is the federal representatives and senators in New Hampshire have come on board. They recognize that this is a multi-state problem that we all have to address. So we've already done a lot of the things. It's now up. Warren is absolutely correct. The local communities, Nashua, Manchester, they don't have the funds to do it. It's time for the federal government to step up, and I believe it's going to happen. It's still going to take quite a bit of time. Now, what we're doing in Newburyport, and what we've done with other committees, is we are setting up a system that will give an early warning. It's a sophisticated system. It's one like they have in the Charles River Basin. We're working on it. It will read what's in the water and will tell people immediately as soon as the sewage outflow that there's a problem, and that should be running later this year.
Thank you. Sean.
Yeah, I think we all agree on this one, and I think everyone should be upset about this one, and this is something I'm hearing at the doors too as I travel around Newburyport. How is this possible? How has this gone on for so long? Newburyport stepped up and built their wastewater treatment plant and solved their CSO problem, and now we have all these other communities. We have Manchester, Lowell, Haverhill, communities that get a lot more funding than Newburyport does, and we're kind of at the mercy of them at the end of the river. We absolutely need to partner with our communities around us. Again, I think we're all hoping that maybe the answer here is the federal infrastructure program, and hopefully some of those funds can trickle into some of those larger cities. But at the same time, we've got to stick up for being a community on the Merrimack. The Merrimack's our lifeblood. We're a seacoast town, and we're bearing the brunt of it, being right down here by the mouth, by the communities that live downriver. So I absolutely think we need to collaborate with our communities around us to really speak up against this, work with our state representatives, and then if must do, I think this is a class action lawsuit that we could take to them, because it's just continues to be a problem, and I think we deserve better than that. We're a boating community. I think this could be a quality of life issue for the people that make their living on the Merrimack. So there's absolutely we can do more, and I'm glad it's something we all agree on up here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have about 15 minutes left and a few important questions to get through, so I think we can do it. Starting with you, Charlie. As mayor, what role would you play to address inequities around social justice in our community?
That's a difficult one, all right? First of all, what I'd like to say is I think Newburyport is the kind of community where we can do two things. We can say and believe that Black lives matter, right? And we can also say that the thin blue line, all right, protects us, and then we respect people who do it. I think both can be done together. I've talked to police officers in town. I've talked to a lot of the DEI folks. I went to all of the sessions that they just held. I really do believe that with continued leadership from the mayor's office and from city councilors, we can come together on this. A friend of mine said that maybe the best thing we could do is just ban everyone from Newburyport from watching cable TV, the news, Fox and everything else. Maybe that would solve the problem, because I really do believe this. Is that we are taking national ideological problems and superimposing them on Newburyport. So that's the first thing. I think we need to have that conversation. We need to understand that there are people in this community who feel threatened, all right? And we need to continue to have the conversation. I know, all right, there have been some spectacular programs at the high school where they are beginning to talk to students. I know they have a whole program on the Holocaust that they work with the Anti-Defamation League on. I know that Deb Szabo has a literature course where kids in her class work with kids in Lawrence. I think we need to do more of that in our school system and throughout the community.
Thank you. Sean.
Yeah, this is an incredibly important question. growing up here and having, such a love for my hometown, the fact that there are some people that don't feel Newburyport is inclusive or have been the victim of race crimes or hate crimes here in Newburyport is incredibly sad to me. And I do think we can do a lot more. And I think part of that is having some conversations that we're already starting here in the community. I really credit Superintendent Gallagher for starting some of this work in our schools already. We brought in a consultant, Michael Eaton, who's been working with staff and students around this issue of social justice, equity, racism in our schools. In my professional life, I worked for an education company, so for a year I was able to travel around to Massachusetts school districts, particularly urban school districts, and I worked with Dr. Tyrone Howard out of UCLA, who's one of the foremost experts in social justice, equity, in working with schools around the country. And I learned a lot. And again, these are challenges that a lot of communities are facing, not just Newburyport. Earlier this year, I brought up an incident that happened in 1941. At the high school, and I took a lot of heat for bringing that incident up. What happened was, back in 1941, an African-American student was pulled out of the line and forced to walk at the back and not where he was supposed to in line in class because the student didn't want to walk with an African-American. And I couldn't believe the story. I mean, I've lived here my whole life. I'm a fifth generation Newburyport. How have I not heard this? I had people that were there that day that ended up collaborating it. And then I had hundreds of people reach out to me and saying, oh my goodness, we can finally talk about this. It was one of those issues, because it's an uncomfortable issue, it was swept under the rug. So we definitely need to lead this. We have to continue the work of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coalition, and I'm so glad that group of people have come together. The conversations that took place in June were good, and I think it's a good first step, but it has to be a much more public conversation and public process. These are difficult and uncomfortable conversations. We have to have those courageous conversations here in our town. And as mayor, I'm looking forward to leading those conversations because, again, how do we move on and how do we lead and how do we grow and how do we empower the community unless we have those tough conversations? Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. And Warren.
Well, I've watched this whole episode develop ever since George Floyd was killed by that police officer who I can't for the life of me imagine what he was thinking while he was doing that, holding his knee on the person's neck. I can't imagine it. But, he couldn't have known what the fuse he was lighting. And ever since then, it seems that there's been an increasing focus on our differences, and this has been serving to separate us. So since that time, it seems that we are farther apart than ever. And becoming increasingly distant from each other. We are obsessed with secondary characteristics like skin color. It's to the point of obsession on all sides. And I think it's ridiculous. I think education is really the answer. And it used to be that we were Americans first and everything else was second. It didn't matter what your ethnic, racial, or religious background was. You were an American. And that's what really mattered, and everything else was secondary. And I think today that's been reversed. Today people are burning the flag and saying, no, I'm this, I'm that, but I'm not an American, and I turn my back on the flag. We see athletes with multi-million-dollar bankrolls turning their backs on the flag and just being in general disrespectful. That's not helping the process. These people who are fomenting these race riots, they're driving Americans farther and farther apart to no good.
Thank you. One final question before closing statements, and we'll start with you, Sean. Often communities are faced with controversial issues. Give a couple, well, we'll keep it quick. Give one example of how you've used mediation, negotiation, and coalition building skills to bring groups of people together to reach solutions.
Sure, absolutely. I think it's one of my best qualities. I think it's part of my leadership style. I mean, I want to lead by consensus. I think you have to bring people together and listen to the people in the room. We have a lot of expertise here in town. I mean, one of the things I want to do and prioritize is bring back open office hours to City Hall. Again, I think we really need to start being more resident focused and hearing from the community as much as possible. You know, every place I've been in my life, I think I've brought people together. I've enjoyed my time on the school committee. We don't always agree, but I think we are able to talk through issues and come to some consensus and move our schools forward. I think we saw that during the pandemic this past year. I've also, you know, again, I'm not a part of the current administration. I'm not on the city council, and I've kind of seen how they've operated the last few years. So I do think I bring a fresh perspective. And my hope is I'm the candidate, and actually I know I'm the candidate that can effectively work with all the personalities in the room. Because again, at the end of the day, we all love where we live. We are extremely lucky to live in Newburyport. And I think we have to work together as far as working on some of the larger issues and kind of putting personalities aside. And I feel like that's what's happened in the last 4 years. And so I think we need a fresh approach. I think we need to try some new ideas and bringing people together to work on bigger issues. I mean, I think that's how we get to win-win situations here in Newburyport. Thank you.
Thank you. Warren.
My policy will be an open door policy, open phone policy. People can call me any time of the day or night and just walk in and speak to me. And the best way to resolve conflicts, I find, is to meet with both parties, either individually or together, preferably together, and just work out a solution. I believe in an open government and dealing with people on a face-to-face, personal basis. There's no substitute for that. You know, I'll listen to your problems. I've spent my life managing multi-million-dollar budgets and managing dozens and dozens of people working on major projects. That is what I do. That is how I made my living for many, many years. I am a recognized professional at this. I'm not a committee person. I don't like working on committees. I'm more of a manager. And to my mind, in my experience, having earned my MBA at Boston College at the top of my class, I have found that committees are one thing and managers are something else, and rarely the twain shall meet.
Amber, could you repeat the question?
Absolutely, yes. Often communities are faced with controversial issues. Give one example of how you have used mediation, negotiation, and/or coalition building skills to bring groups together to reach solutions.
So just one example. I'm not
Yes,
going to
please.
keep to that. Sorry. You know, on the city council, we've heard reference that we haven't worked well together. I disagree. All right, with that. Look, all of us on the city council work really hard. We've got a very talented council, and we have a council that is opinionated, and we are going to disagree. But in the process of disagreement, we have done some pretty special things over the past 8 years and past 4 years for the city. All right, they've been controversial, but we have been successful. And I want to say something else. None of it is personal on the council. There isn't a councilor that, you know, after we have a heated battle, we all, you know, go to the park lunch and we have a beer together, right? And there's no one on the council well, some drink, you know, non-alcoholic beverages, but there's no one on the council that I wouldn't do that with. And so I think we all respect each other, and I certainly respect everybody on the council. Now, a couple of issues. The garage issue, really a tough issue, but we worked together as a council, we worked through it. Low Street, all right, we had, you know, that was a 6-5 vote, all right? We needed 8 votes to purchase Low Street. We had some heated differences. I reached across, right? And I you know, a lot of folks on the council didn't think that we needed a conservation restriction on that property. I went along with council argument, and I said, I'm going to go along with that. All right, I agreed to the conservation restriction, and I got other councilors to agree. I thought that was a possibility. On marijuana, I didn't have another really controversial position in whether or not to allow retail marijuana in the city. Some folks wanted it everywhere in the city and downtown. Some folks didn't want it at all. We worked out a compromise in the council that then the voters in Newburyport chose to reject by putting it near the highway on Story Ave. So I've done a lot, and I have a record on it, and I'll continue to do it.
Thank you. Okay, that's a wrap. We're going to shift to closing statements. And to remind you of the order, it will be Sean, Charlie, Warren. You each have 2 minutes. Sean.
All right, great. Well, thank you everyone again for coming out tonight. So I've been asked a lot of questions tonight, so I'm going to pose one question to you. Why vote for Sean Reardon for Mayor of Newburyport? Number one, I am ready. I am ready now, and I'll be ready on day one. I am experienced. My city experience, my business experience. I've been preparing for this my whole life. I'm a Newburyport native. I have a tremendous passion for this city. I'll bring tremendous energy to the role each and every day. When I take the office in January, I'll have a master's in public administration. This is a degree focused on executive leadership and management of public policy. Excuse me. The past 4 years, I've had the opportunity to work intimately with our school budget, which makes up between 60 and 65% of our budget, depending on the year. That's an incredible amount of experience to have working with a budget that size. After 12 years of one administration, I think we need some new blood. I think we need some outside the current administration and the city council to bring a fresh perspective. We need new ideas, new energy, and a new way of doing things. I'll be a consensus taker. I want to hear from all the experts in the room for sure, but then I'll be that decision maker to make the decision and push that initiative forward. I am in it for the long haul. This election, I don't believe, is about the next 4 years. I think it's a vision of Newburyport that goes 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It's going to outlive me. It's going to outlive my opponents. But I think, again, we love living here. This is an amazing community, and I think it's great that we have 3 great candidates up here that want to do what they can to move Newburyport forward. Again, after 12 years, it's time to chart a new course. Please consider voting for me on September 21st and again on November 2nd. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Charlie.
It's obvious that the election for mayor is the choice for someone to lead the city over the next 4 years. I think there's something actually more important in this election. And what's more important in this election is that we have a conversation about our vision, collectively, all of our vision for the future of Newburyport, and how the next mayor can help achieve that vision. Like a lot of you, my wife and I decided to live here in Newburyport after coming here to go to the beach, to shop, to enjoy the arts, theater, music, eating, right? We love the community. And when we had an opportunity to buy a house here, we did. We raised our son here, and we became part of the community. 8 years ago, people asked me to run for city council. I jumped at the opportunity. As I said earlier, I am driven to improve the world around me, to leave Newburyport a little bit of a better place for having been here. Being on the council has been a wonderful experience. This council, contrary to what others says, along with the mayor, has accomplished much over the past 8 years. But there is still much more to accomplish. Tonight, we have just begun to discuss the critical issues that the next mayor must address. You can see my detailed positions on my webpage at www.tontar4mayor.com. Please go there and take a look. I am running for mayor because I have the background, I have the experience, I have the knowledge, I have the desire, and more than anything else, I have the passion to lead Newburyport for the next 4 years. I love Newburyport. I love working with others to improve it. And at the end of my term, I just want to be able to say I came here and I left this community a little bit better than when I arrived. I ask for your vote on September 21st, and also, again, I ask for your vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you, and 2 minutes. Thanks. Thank you, and 2 minutes for you, Warren.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Having already achieved my own personal success, my only interest in this campaign for mayor is serving the public and making Newburyport more beautiful. I will be working for you, not for me. I bring decades of actual management experience to this position. Throughout my 20-year career as a U.S. Navy Supply Corps officer, plus 17 years as a program manager for the Department of Defense, I've managed many high-level projects at home and abroad. It's better to do a job right the first time than have to do it over, and that's my philosophy. During my 10 years with the Newburyport Rotary Club, I held every office, including president, personally raising many thousands of dollars for local charities, scholarships, eradicating polio, and the beautification of Newburyport. More recently, I've lent my skills to the Newburyport Elks Lodge as an officer of the club, again benefiting the community. My family is of, by, and for the city of Newburyport, and our daughters attended the Newburyport Public Schools. They also graduated from Fordham University and are now professionally employed in their chosen fields. I may be conservative on some issues, but I am an independent, and I vote not by party, but for whoever is the best candidate. I urge you to do the same. Vote for experience, not anything else. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much to each of you for stepping up. Thank you for being here tonight to earn our votes. Let's give everyone a collective round of applause. Thank you. Quick thank yous to the Daily News of Newburyport for sponsoring this evening, and specifically to you, Richard, for everything you did to make this night happen. Thank you to the school department for allowing us to use the space, to NCM Hub for streaming this event into homes, to everyone who showed up tonight, everyone who tuned in, everyone who watches this later. Please take everything you heard tonight, talk to your friends and neighbors, and make sure that all of your voices are heard in the preliminary election on September 21st. Thank you, be well, we'll see you around town.